evening, everybody, and this is Noreen McClendon. Welcome again to another evening and session of Free to Heal, where we are formerly incarcerated loved ones and children that come together every week to try to heal from the ravages of mass incarceration. And we are grateful to have all of us with us this evening. And tonight, I'm going to start with Mr. Terrell Tillman, who will facilitate for us periodically. And he didn't know he was facilitating tonight. So I just, as he said, I gangstered his topic. He had a discussion with a young lady today. And so I want him to talk about it. And I want to chime in on some things that have come up in recent conversations with me that are related or adjacent to the topic. And Mr. Tillman, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. No, but thank you. My name is Terrell Tillman. I love to be here on Free to Heal. And yeah, today I had probably a good 3-4 hour conversation and luncheon with a young lady. And it was just enlightening because she's like 25, 26 years old. And she really got her stuff together. She got her mind right. And she's spearheading it to mentor other young ladies her age and young women her age and, older as well and younger, about the etiquette of how to be a young lady, how to be a woman, and it was just very enlightening. I feel real good about it because I know it's other young ladies out there like her, and those are the ones that undoubtedly we trying to discover and link up pretty much, you know what I mean? So you had them like minds, and so they could spread it. They could spread the good, wholesome, how to be an etiquette, showing the etiquette of how to be a wholesome young lady. You ain't got to be out here twerking and acting like a hoe and looking like a hoe and acting like and looking like a gold digger. But then you want to be you want a solid man. You want a man with certain type of money or status, you know what I mean? And think he gonna praise you because you look a certain way. Or you ain't got a BBL or something. Or you know what I'm saying? You out here shining, looking like money, but you have no substance. You have no morals about yourself. So this young lady, we were talking pretty much about mentorship and things of that nature. And her upbringing and how she's an entrepreneur and she has products and stuff like that. So it was just a very, very enlightening conversation. And it was, man, I walked away from that like, man, just happy about knowing that there are young people out there with that mindset. And, it's crazy because I met her at the California Wellness Center. They had an event down there. That's what I met. I met her in July. So this is the first time we actually was able to sit down and chop it up. Because she worked for Tarzana, then she stopped and she's pursuing her own business. She's doing her own business and doing her thing because she wasn't getting treated fairly. So she said she stopped, started her own business, she got a bunch of skincare products and health products, gave me some free stuff. And I'm finna try this little mask.
So do me a favor. What I would like for you to do is read the names of those products so that anybody that's listening might be able to support her products. Read the names off the boxes, baby. Just the name of her product.
This product right here is some multivitamin, and it's called Nutrilite. It's the double A.
Okay.
And right here she has some face. It's a face mask, and this one is for purifying mask, and it's Artistry. So she has.
The brand is Artistry or Nutrilite because I can't see it.
No, the brand is Artistry.
Artistry, okay. Yeah. So Artistry products. I'm assuming she probably has a website.
Yeah, she has a website. I'm gonna go right through it on her because she.
Yeah, because I would like,
we're gonna plug her in real quick.
Heck yeah, Artistry. Anybody out there needing skin products, gifts for people for the holidays? I don't even do that, but if that's what y'all into, you know what I'm saying? It might be to be able to help somebody that can help somebody else.
So her business is called Just Blaze, Jayla Holmes, and she has an abundance of different products from health products, skincare products, all kind of different products, men and women, don't matter. She have a whole bunch. It's like over 600 products on her
Oh, awesome.
catalog. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's
she has
awesome.
yeah she has a bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of tea. I mean, she just has it's too much for me to name.
So
So
let me tell you why it was important that I wanted to discuss that, because there are when I even in being in the prison and talking to men who are preparing to come home, um, men who are young enough that want to date and those kinds of things, times have changed, and so have the mindset of a lot of women, particularly young women. And when you talk about this, one of the things that I was sharing with the men in Folsom is this: when you go home, women are different. And what you need to realize is that, number one, you need to make sure that you're protecting yourself physically from a sexual standpoint. There are diseases that, like, even right now they have syphilis now that is very resistant to penicillin. Some people thought they could get rid of. There are those kinds of challenges right now. In addition to that, one of the concerns that I had, and one of the guys raised it, when you talk about the BBL and all the lashes and the fake hair and all this kind of stuff, most men don't like that. So my concern is the women do it and they say they're doing it because they like it. But to me, my concern is you do this to impress other women. And if men are telling you,
competition,
right,
they
it's competition with each other. But if you say you want a man and a man doesn't, and most men don't like that, you're counterproductive, because really they do want men. They do want men, but men are not attracted to all of those things that they are doing to themselves. Not to mention the fact that they're all looking alike. When you talk about etiquette, there is a particular way for a woman to carry herself. But let me tell you what the challenge is with the men. Men are taking the convenient woman. They're taking the woman that allows them to pop in and out of their lives and be convenient. And then they say they want a good quality woman. Well, most quality women are not going to have you not be consistent. They're going to require you to be responsible to them and accountable to them. You're not going to have a high quality woman if you want the woman who lets you come and be nothing. I got a hand back here.
Now it's when it's time to talk about.
Go ahead.
Men. Oh, okay. So they got these guys painting our office building. And one of the men is a little guy, 70, like 74 or something. But he's like, and sorry, it's not a braggadocious thing. He kept saying, "Oh, you so pretty, you so pretty." And I'm just nice, and I'll talk to anybody. He said, if I call you, if I give you my number, you call. Of course, I like talking to people. But this thing said sex one time, then he said something, then he told me I fall in love real quick. And I got feelings for you. I said, you don't even know me. I said, you done already said 3 wrong things to me about sex, because you don't know me. I don't know you. So why would you even be mentioning that to me? So, I know most men want that in their life, but you got to get to know people. And you got to get to know people when you come out of prison, because you stick your penis in something and die.
Yeah, and that's the truth.
And then I always like to say this, that you guys can't tell the real women from the men anymore. So you got to get to know people.
Yes.
That came up in a conversation too. Man, I had such a light conversation.
Go ahead, say it again, Terrell.
I said that came up in a conversation too, but we talked about all of that. The mothers hating on the daughters, the mothers not being educated enough to educate the daughters, the mothers advocating when the little babies is 2 and 3 years old and twerking. Then when they get 6 and 7 and 8, they fast and they hot. But you trained them like that when they was little. You know what I mean? And they remember that when they was 2 and 3 and 4 years old, and you was clapping when they was twerking, and they was clapping and all of that. Now they get 6, 7, 8, 9, and now their little thing is hot, and they running around. You call them little hot tails. but you created that. You know what I mean?
And it's very similar to the same thing with guys having little boys, dressing them in gangbanging type clothes, sagging their pants, wearing the jewelry, giving them little nicknames. Oh, you little so-and-so. No, call him by the name the government name that you gave him, as opposed to that. And you think it's cute when they're little, but you don't realize what that's going to look like at 16, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. And that's, again, part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation, Terrell, because when you mentioned it, it literally has come up like 3 times about the quality of women and I've had a guy, some of you might know him. He actually, he did Free to Heal for us before, Steve Whitey, from Whitey Enterprises. And he contacted me because he wanted me to, and I've gotten this lady, she's given us a proposal, so we have to finalize it. But his concern was that young women are not being taught to cook. And he asked me to use our commercial kitchen and get somebody to actually teach classes on cooking, just basic things. There are a lot of young women growing up right now, they go, I make reservations.
They
Okay,
don't know how to cook.
that sounds cute
They don't know how
to
to cook.
you, but that's not a cute thing. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach, like it or not. Look, I have men in prison tell me, she crazy, but she made some good neck bones, so I just keep staying. And I discourage them from that. You learn how to make your own damn neck bones, okay? Instead of putting up with crazy lady, right? So
there's a bigger byproduct of the war on drugs.
you're gonna have to come up so make they can hear you.
These things that we're talking about are byproducts of the war on drugs. They are byproducts of the great, like the Great Depression. It's the great deterioration of the family unit. When you have, a grandmother who, is in her 30s and she's been a byproduct of her mother, her father being incarcerated. First, you had men who were massively incarcerated, and then the government has, since we got here, since we arrived, there has been this mantra to break the Black, the Negro, the Black, the slave, the Black person, so on and so forth. In our communities, they have always taken the men out of our communities. We have become accustomed to that. We have lived with that for centuries. You started taking the women out of our communities. The mass incarceration on the woman has created the biggest deterioration of, I can only speak for the Black community, for the biggest deterioration in the Black community. As we see, we have men who speak so eloquently about wanting this woman and with all of these attributes, but they themselves don't have the qualifications to bring that woman to fruition. But they don't want, sexy red. They don't want the lady, talking about your booty hole being brown. I don't want her either, but I understand that she is a byproduct of this entire continuous breakdown of our community, and how they really got to us was the incarceration of women.
Yeah.
And so we got to stop beating up on one another, to me, and we need to begin to talk together, because first of all, we have to identify what the problem is. And the problem is too many of our mothers have been taken out of the community.
Mm-hmm.
The mother is the one that generally taught you how to cook. My daughter's 37. If you knew how many of her friends only know how to make hamburgers, spaghetti, and tacos. It's ridiculous. And so now she's just brought a child into the world. Heaven forbid I am able to be there. When that child is there, I will teach that child how to cook the same way I'm teaching her how to cook, the same way I'm teaching my son how to cook. But we have to figure out, or we have to begin to work together to combat all of the things that we are talking about. Because the breakdown of, I call her the booty hole girl, because I almost hit the floor when I heard that song. But the breakdown of the girl is the same breakdown of the guy.
It is.
And we have to have these conversations so that we can begin to employ that piece, because I've held cooking classes. I've held cooking classes in my house. I've held cooking classes at work for women who were older than me. I teach them, they come in my DMs and I teach them how to make macaroni and cheese, how to do these things, the basic necessities in life, how to boil rice. If you just really want to know, ask somebody, how do you cook rice? And majority of people cannot tell you it's a 2-to-1 ratio.
That's it.
But that comes from that deterioration.
And let me jump in there and say this too. So it started, unfortunately, back many years ago with particularly in our time with welfare.
Yep.
So what they did is they removed a lot of like the factories and things out of the communities. They shut them down, and now there's no employment. And what they did was, at that point, then now they said, if you want to have get food stamps or welfare to be able to feed your children, the man has to leave the household. A woman or a family could not get, and I see your hand, a woman or a man of a family could not receive public assistance if there was a man in the household. When that didn't work, because that also started around the time of the heroin and all of those things, when my dad and them became heroin addicts in the 60s.
Claudine.
Yes, Claudine, the movie Claudine, exactly, right?
The same exact pretense. Claudine.
Yes. So
I made my kids sit down and watch it.
So when they did that, then when that didn't totally destroy the family structure in poor communities, then what they went to, when they finally got to crack, see, heroin didn't make women walk away from children. Crack did.
Heroin did not catch on in certain communities.
Right.
I don't mean to keep
but go ahead.
But heroin caught on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Heroin caught on in Chicago. Heroin caught on in places where it was extremely cold. Mm-hmm. Heroin did not catch on in California and other warmer places. And I've done the study because I asked my family, I asked my mother, and I asked my uncles, why didn't you get hooked on heroin? And they told me why. It was an option versus something that could totally displace what they were feeling. And so heroin did not catch in the western part of the United States like it was supposed to.
Right. And so, but then with crack, it did. And as a result of crack caught on everywhere. Like wildfire. Within a few years, you had a lot of, and what was happening is now you had families, women leaving their families to go seek those drugs. Okay. And that was the final nail in the coffin for women and families. And so a lot of it, and then you start having them people start having kids younger and younger and younger, and all of those things make a difference. And it's also when they started with the mass incarceration of women, one of the reasons why 90% of men can access, coming home from prison, can access services, and only 4% of women. Why? Because it took the criminal justice system decades to realize that men coming out of incarceration needed assistance to get back on their feet. They haven't yet caught up with that same, they have pretense and that same premise for women yet. So that's why A New Way of Life in particular is one of the programs that's trying to replicate itself internationally. And so I'm saying that the destruction of the woman, even during slavery, women, when they sold off other people and the kids were left, the slave women took those kids and raised them and nurtured them. So there was still that sense of community, but crack allowed them to stop that cycle of women being in there. And so it is the destruction of women knowing how to be women. They don't understand how to do it. And then and I'm gonna come right to you after this, Terrell. Then you come into the 90s where you had rap artists talking about, you got Belle Biv DeVoe and Don't Trust a Big Button to Smile, and now women, they talk about they pimping and popping their collars and all of this stuff, and you're not pimping and you're not popping your collar and you're not a man, because people haven't changed. Women still want to be loved, cared for, and cherished by men. When men still want to be respected and they want to have a lady in the street and a freak in the bed. Nothing has changed. I don't care what you say, it has not changed. People at their core are the same. They want the same thing. Okay, go ahead, Terrell. Terrell, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Right. I see your hand up.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going into the root of the community problem.
Right.
I was just particularly speaking about the ethics of, you know, how all of that stuff has transcended the ethics of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm gonna tell you, like, then this is just me. I can't blame incarcerating the women. That's why these women do what they do. I can't blame it. But I know the incarceration of women have gone up. But I think that it's just the culture. It could be the music. It could be the men on the street, the culture. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not gonna say it could be. It is these men on the street. It is the culture.
It
Because that contributes to that woman wanting to look like a certain way, dress a certain way, and attract the man for attention and be competition for another woman. So she can spend $10,000 to go get a BBL on herself. You know what I mean? And the ethic part is where I'm at with it. You know what I'm saying? Because when you don't have ethics as a woman, you trying to be like a man. Like you said, they got the women out there popping their collars, talking about they pimping and that's none. You a woman. You a whole woman. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't even be trying to act like a man and vice versa. Ain't no man should be trying to act like no woman.
This is a very debatable.
You know what I mean? But the tutelage of women didn't decimate like men did with the mass incarceration. And if you look at the age bracket of those women who did, the women who did leave and go to prison, it's a hell of a disparity. So, and it definitely made an effect for sure. But it's a lot of disparity there. But you did have a lot of women.
And I want to understand what you're saying, a disparity between what?
As far as men getting locked up opposed to women in a certain time range for the communities to actually change the whole dynamic of the family dynamic and the actual behavior of the woman. You know what I mean? In the communities, you know what I'm saying? In the urban communities. Okay. And culturally, because not only Black women act like this, white women act like this, Latinos are all over the world. This is a woman thing. This ain't a culture thing. This is not a LA thing, a United States thing. This is how a lot of women around the world act. You go on YouTube, you go on anything on the internet. This is a lot how these women are acting.
Well, but it stemmed from somewhere. It
definitely stemmed from a lot of places. It stems from a lot of places, and we can't just say it happened more here or this, that, and the other. I'm saying I'm just glad to see that this young lady is out here and doing the right thing and got her mind right. So, you know, she can help mentor others. You know what I'm saying?
It gives you hope.
And it gives me hope. And at the same time, it's like, I just see how a lot of the negative stuff with women play out, but I see the good stuff too. You know what I'm saying? I see the Sherrills, I see the youths, I see the Tonys, I see the women aspect of it, but it's not a lot of that. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot of that. You know what I mean?
And I will tell you this. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying, babe.
And then in the community, if you look around in the hood, you're going to see a disparity and you're going to see the same thing at the same time. You're going to see young women out there just wilding out. And then you're going to see the little dudes out there doing the same thing, but the older people ain't trying to redirect them. Even their parents. A lot of these youth got parents. But the parents don't even try to redirect them because they didn't already raise them in a messed up fashion.
Well,
And it's crazy. It's crazy because we was talking about that. How the women today talking about these little boys and these little young men. You raised these young men.
or
So
actually didn't, or actually didn't.
No. I'm saying you did exactly. You didn't raise them right. You let them grow up. You know what I'm saying? Gave them everything or whatever you did, made them. You crippled them in essence to not be accountable and go out there and be a man and get your stuff together, or be a woman and don't twerk and don't do this and don't do that. So now they out here doing it. They running with them. They running with them. It's a lot of that. Like Tony was saying, the grandmother running with the daughter and the grandbaby.
Mhm.
But you
And the daughter can't cook. Why? Because the mama ain't taught her.
because the mother got incarcerated.
Right.
So
I'm not saying for the incarcerated mothers. I'm just saying.
No, but
Make
for the
it-
most
make it
part,
plain and
but
clear
but
then.
hear me out. When I say to you, when I grew up, my mother was the only woman in the entire neighborhood that was incarcerated. But 10 years later, that changed from one woman to 50 women. 10 years after that, it's 100 women. And the women were the ones, men have been, historically, men have been incarcerated since the beginning of time. They've had some prison, some penitentiary, some jail, some slave labor camp, and all of that. Women were not a part of that as a whole. There were very few women. If you look at the history of prisons and how many prisons, from 1980 to now, the rate of incarceration for women has risen 800%.
Right.
That's a very big number. Whereas the rate of incarceration of men has steadily risen. We went a couple of decades where it jumped, 30 years, it jumped 800% in 30 years. And to me, and maybe it's just me, that led to a big degradation in our communities, because the women have always expected some piece of the population of men to go to prison. Maybe not as many that have gone in the past 30 years, but prior to the past 30 years, in the 60s and in the 70s and in the 50s, we had, you know, the Panthers, we had the political prisoners. Most of them were men. There was one or two women. But when you turn around now, where we have households where both of the parents are incarcerated, that was the exception and not the rule. And today it's more of a rule than it is an exception. And I personally feel like that has had a heavy degradation on the society, on the community, whether it be Black, brown, Asian, it doesn't matter. To me, that whole, the government was trying to figure out how to do this, how to keep people. They figured it out when they started concentrating on the women, because what you're talking about is what has been seen in the past 30 years. We've gone from Josephine Baker to Little Kim to Sexy Red. That didn't happen without this high incarceration rate of women. That 800% increase is definitely as a result of it. And that's just my opinion.
Well, and the thing of it is that when you take out the structure, when you take out the example, so when you remove from a society those people who can raise their children, right? And the mothers are not teaching them, they're not teaching the daughter, and the daughter can't teach the granddaughter because they don't have that, they're not there. Right. So these are the things that that wind up affecting the entire structure of the community, is because you take out a piece here and there, right? I've talked about this with people before. If we are, every family has a structure. So my mother had 3 children of her own. I had 2 older brothers and myself. When you just remove one of them, somebody's position in the family, the middle child is going to shift, things shift, right? That's just one household. If you do that for multiple households in a neighborhood, then you wind up with everything shifting. And this is part of it, which has produced this notion and this reality, along with, when you mention culture, along with music and video. And so my son's generation is the first one really to grow up kind of TV babies, like a lot of television and all that, the videos and all this kind of stuff. Well, if he didn't have me to help navigate what he was seeing, then he would have turned out a lot different, right? Nowadays, another thing, Terrell, I think that's important to talk about too, is the amount of drugs that are being talked about and sang about and act like all of that is great. Popping Molly and none of that stuff is good for any of us, but those things have deteriorated the entire structure of the family. You want to say something, Cheryl?
Me and Roberta. So this is a
Break her phone. Jeez.
she has a case on it.
Break her phone.
Don't get mad, Roberta, because you got something to say for real. No, because me and Roberta both went away, and our kids were there, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing. So, and she was saying stuff in the back, how she do say stuff in the back, but she got something important to say.
No, all I was saying was I forget you whatever you said, and I was thinking I was incarcerated. I wasn't out here raising my kid. I wasn't out here raising Trayvon. And so what happened to him is he's like to this day, he is one of them kids you talk about, like, what's wrong with that kid? What's wrong with him? And the first thing you said was, because their mama didn't write. I wasn't there to do that. I wasn't there to do that.
And there was a direct impact of you not being there to be able to even raise him as a man, as a boy.
Listen, can I say something? Can I say something? And let me make this perfectly clear. I'm not attacking anybody here. I'm a man that did, wait. I'm a man that did 20 years, 2 different stints. So I wasn't there for my kids neither. So I understand that. And we know the history of slavery and how it's decimated our cultures and incarceration and all of that stuff. We know that. I'm talking about today. What are we going to do today in the brightness of this young lady today? You know what I'm saying? Of how we going to move forward. We know the past. Shit, we've been in the past. We lived the past. We are the past.
Is she gonna come and talk to us?
Well, no, no. She's not gonna come and talk to us.
The thing is this. I was just explaining to everybody my experience with this young woman.
This
today.
young lady, yes.
We were talking about the culture and the aspect of the young women today. You know what I mean? That's what we were talking about.
Right, and Terrell.
And we weren't talking about the aspect of, we didn't go into the incarceration aspect of it because it wasn't on the incarceration aspect. Because we know if you want to do numbers, you can't even make it a sex thing, a man and woman thing, because you got to make it a black and brown thing. So we're not talking about the numbers of incarceration. We're just talking about the behavior, you know what I'm saying, of the women, the species. And I'm not saying that the incarceration didn't have no effect on it, because it does. I'm not saying it didn't have no effect on it, because every mother wasn't there to raise their child, just like every father wasn't there to raise their child. And I'm not saying because you weren't there to raise your child, I'm blaming you, or you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that.
Let me tell you how I think we wound up in 2 different places, okay?
Because y'all took it around, because Tony came with the incarceration aspect of it and took it back to slavery and brought it up today, and we went to the slavery and incarceration part of it. And I was just talking about the mindset and the mentorship that this young lady do.
So when you brought up the topic in your check-in with us before we even started recording, for me, it sparked several conversations that I've had recently, okay, that caused me, that's why I said, no, what you brought up, I wanted to talk about it, because there were so many things and there have been so many people that I've had conversations with recently that this topic is coming up about the state and condition of the young women. And so I'm inspired by the fact that, yes, this young woman wants to teach etiquette and those things. I'm inspired by that as well, but I also, again, wanted to bring up the topics of the things that the other men that I've talked to recently have been talking about, which led Tony to talk about the root causes of those things. And until there's nothing that will be uprooted or will be stopped if you don't pluck up the root of it. So if you don't understand how it got started, you're not going to ever be able to solve it. For example, the young lady, bless her heart, and I can tell you, whatever effort she put in is going to be great. But unless and until the root cause is understood and addressed, then it'll be hit and miss on the success of her being able to consistently bring people out of it. A lot of times we need to know how we got there to know how to not be in that situation again. But I thought that the conversation, again, the topic was so relevant because in Folsom, talking to the men, and they're concerned about when they're coming home to these women, even the women that they talk to while they're incarcerated, those women are different than a lot of them remember women to be. And because a lot of them went in young, 16, 17, 18 years old, and never had a lot of adult relationships, I start trying to talk to them about what they could experience when they come out on the other side. And because we have had more women incarcerated in our generation than any other, that really became, it just totally wiped out any semblance of keeping that family structure together that we used to have, and the result of it is where we are today. So even when you see the women, like you say, you see the young women or whatever, and the mothers are not teaching them, it's because nobody was teaching them either, because their mothers were the ones that was incarcerated. So when you talk about the generations, this is what comes about with that. And again, I mentioned also about the quality of the woman that a man is willing to be accountable to and accountable for is going to be the quality of woman that he's going to have. It also affects his level of greatness, because if she's just a convenient woman and he's allowed to do whatever, then what he's going to do is she's never going to inspire him to be great. She's just going to inspire. She's just going to be there, and whatever he does, and no greatness has ever been achieved from a comfort zone. So these are the kinds of things. And I go right ahead, Terrell.
So listen, this is something I wanted to enlighten everybody on this call about. Young people today, they don't care about the root cause because they didn't suffer and go through that like we did. They own what's going on now. And it's not a good thing, because as men, we went to jail, and after they got enough men, they started going after the women. So now that they didn't went after the women and they start incarcerating women, the women now can have that voice and speak just like we do as men of how we were going and taken out of the homes, and we couldn't get that masculinity and the proper etiquette to our young men. And that's why we probably got all of these, other people out here now, transsexuals and all this other stuff, because we weren't there. So now, between that time that they've locked up all of the women, that's the same reason, not an excuse, but the same reason. And now those women who have been incarcerated out here on the street have that voice to speak on that issue, because it is an issue. You know what I mean? Because at first, like you say, like Tony pointed out, they wasn't building prisons for women. It was all for men, all men slaves. You know what I'm saying? And anybody that went with them. But when they got enough men slaves, guess what? They said, well, we're going to go after the women. But guess what? What women did they go after? The Black women, not every woman. So that's why I said I didn't want to go into that realm of this conversation, because I'm not talking about the racist aspect of it. I'm just talking about the generalized behavior of the woman. You know what I'm saying?
Because it provokes thoughts in us when we hear certain things.
No, because of the women, because of how the women got started getting incarcerated, that same cycle, the same teachings that the men that were lost with the men started happening with the women.
And for me, Terrell, and again, and one of the things I will say about it is, one of the reasons that it's important to go into all of these conversations is you may know what the root causes are. We may understand that. And remember, this is for a much broader audience just than us. And so it becomes sometimes important to go back for people to be able to get the understanding of what's going on today. And I do understand, let me tell you something. You said something about, and I noticed what you said to be true, is that young people don't care about the root causes. They want to know what's going to happen today, but they also don't know how problems are solved because they don't have the wisdom yet.
That's where we come in.
And that's exactly where we come in, which is why we're talking about it right now. And that is our responsibility, right? Because we do know, which is why it was important for Tony to say the things she said, because and just us as a group, we know.
Yes.
Here she comes. She rolling up on me, y'all. Y'all see her, y'all see her rolling up on me, Terrell? Y'all see her rolling up on me? She rolled up on me.
Look. Oh, if I'd have been there, I'd probably been in trouble. I would got beat up.
And I fight with, I fight with my son to make him understand, because I have 3 generations in my house, right? My son is 19, my daughter's 37, and myself at 57. So I fight with him and his generation to understand that. But here's the thing, it is our responsibility to educate them, because I will tell you, I walked into the first All of Us or None meeting up north, and I listened to how they were putting this performance on, per se, right? How they were disseminating this information. And I wasn't connected because I didn't understand that at that point, I wasn't connected to the All of Us or None. I was like, no, that's y'all. And I was trying to figure out, so the guy, Dorsey, was like, tell me, how do I connect you? And I thought about it, and I came back to the table. And what I came back to the table was, I did a presentation in one of those next meetings when he was getting it off the ground. And what I did was, I said to everybody here, do me a favor. I'm gonna give everybody a piece of paper, and I want you to chart your family's criminal history. I found that common denominator. And in our young people, we have to find that common denominator. And when I sat and did my family's, I had a diagram, and in my family's criminal history, I did how many people in my family have been to prison by generation. My grandparents' generation was 50% because my grandfather had gone and my grandmother had not. My mother's generation was 100%. My generation, out of 26 or out of 20, whatever it was at that time, was about 83%. And then I went on to do a chart of how many children were with their parents and like other just different things in it. But what I did was, I found the relativity and the common denominator. If we sit down with these kids, with these young people, and teach them how that history connects them, it's going to tell them how Cheryl connects, how I connect, how she connects, how you connect. And that's where we have to learn how to build upon that connection, because it's good to have that dialogue, but you're not going to get anywhere without education and understanding. And we have to find those pieces to connect. That is a great piece to start with, because they need to know they may themselves not have gone to jail, but I guarantee you, one of their parents, if not both of their parents, their uncles, their aunts, their cousins, when they begin to see, and then when they chart that, and we can say, look at that chart and look at these numbers in this particular place, look at the numbers, how many of them are women, how many of them are men. We have to just build the education process. We're not going to get past it, just like Noreen said. If we don't give them that education, they're going to stay lost. So I think it's important just to have some kind of education piece in there.
It's not a bad thing no more. I worked at I-League Charter School in Lancaster.
Right.
Come up a little bit.
And half of the kids, majority of the kids,
Right.
don't have a parent at home. Don't have a father at home. Majority of them live with a cousin, an uncle, auntie, or grandma. So now, like, going to jail is okay. It's not like a big thing. Like, I'll tell your mom, like, what you gonna tell my mama? She in jail. Like, say it like it's a joke or it's a game.
I understand.
It's not, it don't feel like it's a bad thing no more. It feels like it's acceptable.
Right.
So now if you try to talk to a kid about doing this or doing that, they look at you like, what you telling me that for? My mama in jail. They don't want to hear anything you have to say. They don't want to talk to you.
I understand.
So it feels like it's more acceptable than being ashamed or anything like that.
Like it used to be.
It's
Right.
It's acceptable now.
Right.
It's okay.
And what I would say to that is that is our responsibility to find that way to make sure that they understand, right? And to be able to support, for example, the young lady you're talking about, to be able to support her in being able, in other words, if nothing else that we can do for her, right, to help her grow her message, help her have resources, provide places for her to have conversations. If she need copies, let me help you make copies, like whatever it is that we can do that do know, we're responsible to help each other to raise everybody's children again, right? That's what our job is.
That's what our commonality is of this show. That's why we're here. You know what I'm saying? This is the community. And this is where we starting at, and that's just one topic that's outside of this realm of what we're talking. I mean, of our group. You know what I'm saying? But this affects everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm
as the solutions. I mean, as the solution-driven adults, we have to meet these kids where they at.
They are, absolutely.
Understand where their mentality is at, plug them in to where they can have an understanding, and then have a solution for them to move forward. Because we can make the connection and we can take them to the root of everything. But that don't mean they're going to accept it because they didn't feel it. They didn't actually feel it themselves. We feel it. They feeling it, but they not conscious of feeling it like we are. You see what I'm saying? Because we've lived to a certain extent in our life. We live, I'm 51. Most of these kids are 25, 26, 30. They haven't lived long enough to actually feel the hurt and pain that's been caused by the root problem. Even if we show them where the root problem comes from, we have to get to the solution and start working with these youngsters and get them solutions so they can start pushing up on a solution. But it is, a factor that they could to know about the past, but a lot of them don't even care. They be like, man, what's up with now? I understand we went through slavery. I understand all of that. I understand we went to jail, but what's we gonna do now? You know what I'm saying?
They don't really get it. They don't really get it. Pike,
so we have to be the problem solvers for them to guide them, guide their intelligence, guide their youth, guide all of that, all of that,
the energy,
all the energy that they have.
Yes, we have to help them.
We have to guide it for them, and that's what they're requesting. But if we can't get at the table with them, because a lot of us older people don't have time, they tired, or the young kids don't respect us. You know what I'm saying? Making excuses when they need to be bumping their gums to one of these youngsters or somebody, anybody. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes a difference too, because the older generation got to put effort forward too, because we know what's happening. We know if we don't, where they gonna end up. So it's our obligation to actually speak up. You know what I'm saying? When and like I was saying earlier, when we can, because like Noreen, just like I know in crisis management and crisis intervention, you just can't pull up on anybody about anything. Motherfucker, who are you? I don't know you. Who you to talk to me about that? So it's a time and a place that you address certain things. You know what I mean? And with the youth, I'm telling you, they want it. It's just we got to be able to give it to them. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm gonna say this, and then I'm going right to Pike. So one of the things that you've mentioned several times, and I know this to be a challenge, and that is this: we're talking about a generation, the 20-somethings and younger, right?
The 30s and down.
Grew up in foster care with no parents, and nobody respected them. They've never experienced being respected. And so as a result, they have very little to no respect. But that's to be expected. If you're not, you can't give what you never had. And so what you have to do, what our responsibility to do, is to meet them, like you said, where they are, accept them for where they are, provide the information that they're looking for, but then also hold them accountable, which is another thing that they're not, that they don't want either. They also have a huge victim mentality as well, and they you know, making excuses and all of this kind of stuff because they've gotten away with it. I had a young lady that worked for us in a summer program, and she was already 21, but her caseworker, her social worker, was still helping provide her services. And I heard this young lady talking to her social worker, "You supposed to do this," and I stopped her right there. I said, "Let me tell you something. You're already over 18, and under no circumstances, they're not required to do anything for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to talk to her with some respect." Mind you, that young lady at this point is pushing 40. Okay, you talking about women 10, 15 years younger than her. It's even worse because they had even less people respect them just as a human being. They haven't been receiving respect. They haven't been taught anything. And so we can't expect them to know things that they had no access to the information. And we got to find them where they are and be able to find that way to connect with something they're going to listen to. And listen, that's difficult sometimes, but we got to be willing to put in the effort. And I wanted Pike to go ahead and say what he was going to say.
You know, you were talking about the population of women and going up in prison. Does that mean that the women are committing more crimes? I mean, it ain't like they go in the neighborhood and say, "Well, I'm gonna take 3 women here and 4 women here and 5, and I'm gonna put you in the pen."
Yeah.
You have committed crime, you know, and I've done the worst of most people. I've killed a lot of people that I should have, and I didn't get the punishment that I should have got. But
You're right. You're absolutely
I
right.
mean, but I'm just, all I'm hearing is the population of women in prison is doubled. Well, the crime must have doubled.
So let me tell you, let me answer it. Wait 1 second before you do. Part of the reason that a lot of women, the number of women got incarcerated, a large number of those were women who had drug habits, particularly again, when crack came in. Right. A lot of it was, so I know, for example, I know one lady, she did 18 years for stealing $850 worth of clothes to support her crack habit. Okay, so she was away from her kids for 18 years behind drugs. And once they were able to get a drug that caused women to do these things, that was part of it, but it was by design. Right. It's not like it wasn't like, oh, women just all of a sudden became more criminal. No, a very large portion are there because of their drug habits. The one lady, non-violent drug offenses. I know another lady I met in CIW, and I may have told you guys this story before. She had a heroin habit when she was married to her husband. She had 2 kids. Her husband rightfully took custody of her children. She would go in and out of jail doing 6, 7, 8, 9 months, whatever she was doing. So she came out, she got clean for 6 years. She became a drug counselor and everything. She said one day she went, and I don't know whether this was theoretically or whether this was reality, that she went down a particular alley, but the way she described it, she went down an alley she knew she should never have gone down, and it caused her to catch another case, which was her longest stint in prison. Now, she was looking for her children. She had been looking for them for years, the whole time she was clean. She's in the med line in prison, and her name is called, and let's say her name is Robust or something. It was something unique. 2 people stood up. It was her name, that it was her time to get her meds. She went and got her meds, went back to the lady and said, "What's your first name?" Whatever, let's say the little girl's name was Candy. She said, "Candy, do you have a sister named Rose?" "Yes, I do." She said, "I'm your mother." Her daughter was there for heroin drug offenses as well. So I'm saying that what happens is there's a lot of drug nonviolent drug offenses that they used to catch women up. And why? Because they had gotten a lot, they had already overcrowded the men population, and now they were filling those beds and with women. So it was a concerted effort, and we get that. And this is where we become, again, responsible to make sure that the younger generation has somebody that can talk to them, somebody that can empathize with them, but also hold them accountable, because that's not a pass to just be any old kind of way. Yes, sir.
Well, they changed the thing. Like years ago, if a person was on drugs and stuff, they sent them to a state hospital. But they found out it was cheaper to keep them in prison.
Yep.
You know?
Beneficial.
Yeah.
More
And
beneficial.
yeah, that you know, and most people don't know that. Most people don't know how a prison runs.
Right.
And most people don't understand that they have to keep them beds full.
Yep.
For those punk ass guards
Beneficial.
keep their jobs. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? And their overtime. They understaff prisons where they can give the guards overtime every month.
Yep.
The system sucks.
Yeah.
And if the average person knew how prison works and what it was costing them in tax dollars,
They wouldn't support it.
Yeah.
They'd be fighting to eradicate it.
you
My
damn
point
right they
exactly.
would.
Yeah, I teach, I do a whole, or I did a whole seminar and a series on that when my mother's book came out. I would talk to people, taxpaying citizens, and tell them, look at how much you don't understand how complicit you are in this process. Because in California, in 2017, we got an $11.4 billion prison budget to run 33 prisons. And our guards are over here making six figures because we're all complicit in this process. We let them take our tax money.
When I first went to prison, there wasn't but 8?
Yeah.
8.
No, we have 33 prisons in California.
Yeah.
22 of them were built from 1980 forward.
Yeah.
So 67% of our prisons have been built since 1980.
And they don't understand. A guard goes in there, he turns the key to let them out to go to the yard. He puts them back for the count, and 90% of his time is sitting in the office bullshitting with the other cops.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they ought to have cameras up there where it's showing this prick is getting big bucks to sit on there in that office and bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And if an inmate come up and wants something, get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this it's bullshit.
It is, and it's certainly not about rehabilitation, any of those things. And so now we have that. Now this is where we are. But again, Terrell, I'm really grateful that you brought up the conversation about the women, because I want, you know, I really am interested in trying to help the young lady with anything that she might need, to talk to more young ladies, because literally we have to start rebuilding our young people so that the next generation of children are not even more disconnected and dysfunctional than the current generation. We have to show this generation that's having children now how to respect their children. Like you mentioned, don't start laughing when she twerking. If she can sing,
Redirect that.
huh?
They're supposed to redirect that. Stop that.
Absolutely.
Don't do
That's
that.
not okay. Sing me your ABCs. Okay. Let me see you write your name. Let me see you learn how to whatever it is. You see what I'm saying?
The twerking is so contagious. They got little boys doing it. They got men doing it.
Right.
So it's,
and
you know, it's twisted. You know what I mean?
it is.
But that
And
don't
we
make it
have
right.
to
That don't make it
we
right.
have to direct their energy so that we can break the cycle of
Yes.
what's going on now. Because guess what I always say? This system that we have right now is an experiment that went very well. And when you do what you did, you took out, it was by design, you took out employment opportunities for people. You infuse the communities with drugs and guns and all of those things, and take out opportunities. When we talk about all of the automation and the technology that is killing jobs, right? All of the jobs that were sent overseas. They talk about, oh, well, they need to have to work for welfare. That sounds good if there's a job, right? But there aren't as many jobs as there used to be. So now you put them in an impossible situation to overcome, and then you're mad at them because they have become exactly what you intended for them to become in the first place. So when you feed into the community and you tell little kids in the inner city that all you can be is a basketball player or a rapper, and have a young lady thinking that the only way that she can be attractive to a man is to have her butt cheeks hanging out and her breasts hanging out, well, then you get what you get.
And don't forget her BBL.
And don't forget her BBL, right? You got to have all this with these eyelashes and all this stuff that don't nobody want. And this is what it produces. And so again, it is by design, and it worked exactly the way it was supposed to. Somebody said, oh, the system ain't working. Oh, yes, it is. It's working exactly the way it was intended to work for the people that set the system up in the first place. Period. The people that started the mass incarceration, that started it, is working exactly the way they intended to work.
The well-oiled machine.
A well-oiled machine.
Right.
Ronald Reagan
had Nancy standing in front of the White House telling the kids to say no to drugs. But if you ever, if you ever been to the White House, the White House, there's a traffic circle in the back of the White House, right? In the back where the traffic circle is. Nancy's on the front line saying, just say no to drugs. In the back of the White House where the traffic circle is the projects. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right across from the White House. I stood there myself. And where these kids is sitting and having to play, where all these crackheads are, and all these other, people that are hooked on drugs, hooked on heroin, and hooked on whatever else it is. It's directly across the street from the White House. What's across? Where McDonald's is where the White House is, from right here. And it's deplorable and it's sad. Yeah, Ronnie was selling
Tony.
back of the White House.
Right, because Ronnie was the one with the CIA, Iran-Contra, yes.
North.
Yes.
And putting them drugs right across the street in the ghetto, because the ghetto is right directly across the street from them $1,300 a day hotels in the traffic circle at the White House.
And again, it was by design. Yes, ma'am.
And I was in Danbury, Connecticut, which they have no prison in DC, so they go to Fluvanna, which is a state prison, and then they start putting them in the feds. When you get in trouble in DC for jaywalking, you're coming to federal prison for a year. When you get in any kind of trouble, but the bulk of the DC people are in Connecticut, are in the FCI in Connecticut. The mothers, we had the highest instance of AIDS in all of the federal prisons because DC had the highest instance of AIDS in the country back then. DC is the size of Compton. And so the mothers that were there, the girls, not with me, the kids that were there had been raising their siblings because their mothers were dying from AIDS and on drugs. And it was it was real sad. When I found out how many, they came and did peer counseling for us. And when I came and, when I found out who in that prison had the virus, I started crying. Because these are people I talk to every single day. And I'm thinking like, oh my God. But it was just an epidemic there.
Right. And DC is not a state.
Right.
So that's how they ended up in a federal prison, because of the way DC they made sure that they were able to fill those federal prisons with people and pushing them out. But we are such a series of microcosms as a result of the war on drugs. And I know the conversation has added so many different layers or what have you.
It's all of it is layers. The incarceration thing. It's like this. It just keeps building on itself.
Right.
What you guys said, when they had, it's not enough men.
Right, and that's what I wanted to
enough
add.
men.
Pike was talking, and then Noreen responded to them. It is also the war on drugs and the crack epidemic, that it was catching them. But then we got this steady influx of men going to prison, and then the war on drugs exacerbated that and heightened the amount of men going to prison. So it wasn't 10%, it rose to maybe 20 to 25%. And the art of survival was also left to the women. So at that point, you had more drug dealers who
women drug dealers,
doing the crimes that were traditionally done by men. So there were in that particular piece so many layers that happened that made that population rise.
And so, and at this point for us, again, our responsibility at this point is to help these young women who are, again, they're 20-some-year-olds, for them to try to help them to understand that there is a better way, understand that we do respect them, understand that we know, we empathize with how they got there, and this is what's going to be required. I mean, it's a simple thing, as simple as using birth control and not having babies by everybody you run up on, right? To protect yourself and to protect your offspring and to protect the next generation. There are a lot of things that can be done. That etiquette, like you say, not like learning how to be a lady and learning that that is acceptable, that that is actually preferred. It's actually preferred by the people that you in your heart really want to attract unto yourself. So that is again, I'm grateful that you brought up the topic. I want to give you, Mr. Figueroa, I want to give you an opportunity. Any comments you have on the topic?
Any of the topics.
Robert, unmute Robert.
That's why you need a podcast.
Found it. So now I was just tripping out on the amount of prisons that they do have. I realized years back what they were trying to do. They were trying to get taxpayers to agree to raising taxes so they can keep in the murder. No, how did they go? Rapists, murderers, and child molesters, as they put it. So they try to do it twice in a row, and the taxpayers got, they got wise the second time and said, no more new prisons. We want programs that work. So
Absolutely.
it was a lot of the prison staff that was actually going for this prison reform crap, right? And it was to reform the correctional officers, not the inmates. But they went around and took all our programs and pretty much left us with nothing. And then they try to show the people on the streets what they were doing to fix the prison, problem. And we weren't the problem; it was them. So they try to, show, look, this is what we were doing for the inmates and this and that. But no, the issue was they were creating problems by creating positions that they did not need. So
Right.
like ad segs, they broke them up, and then they built like satellite ad segs, and they broke those up. And for every section, they had a captain, a lieutenant, and a sergeant. You didn't need to do that. The whole facility has to be run by one captain, one lieutenant, and one sergeant. It's that simple. But no. And on top of that, what they were doing also is they were housing inmates, overpopulated inmates in our gyms.
Yes.
On each yard there's a gym, and they were putting them there. But what they would do is they would open up a gym with level 2 inmates or level 3 inmates, cry to Sacramento. Sacramento will come down. And there were officers that were laughing about this. They were saying that they will direct Sacramento to the yard where the inmates are living in the gym, cry about how much money they need. Sacramento will grant it. When they get the money, they would ship the inmates out to another gym and do the same thing.
Wow. Yeah.
And these officers were laughing about it. Now,
And
we
that's
created programs that worked, but they were fighting us every step of the way. And guess what? When they were showing how these inmates are getting a lot of benefits out of these programs that are being designed in prison, it was the inmates doing it. But this what do they call it? The public relations officer, he's the one that was taking all the credit for it.
Right.
He's the one that's fighting us for it.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy.
And the thing of it is that's what Tony mentioned. It was beneficial this way. It was beneficial for the system for them to overcrowd and do the things that they did. So it was definitely by design. It was definitely by design. Thank you. Rufus, any comments from you on the topic?
I mean, you guys said a whole lot. I couldn't do nothing but keep my ears open and learn. I mean, it was a lot, and y'all was on point about everything, and then especially I just can't. I just what jumps out at me is the beautiful minds, and I say it all the time because it's just amazing what comes out of this group, and how could you miss it? And I've been missing
It's
it.
fire. It's fire. You got
Yeah,
Tony, you got Cheryl, you got man, Rebecca.
I said it again.
I said it's fire, bro. You got all these people, man. This is mine. This is a brainstorm, man. And it's
Exactly, and you guys said so much. I had to just sit back and just listen to it all and take it all in and try to internalize all that, because everything you guys said is just some wonderful stuff from the about our young people, about how our young people growing up from and then about especially about the strong women thing and what men want in terms of they want this and that from a woman, but can they measure up to what can they live up to their part of what the woman expects? You know what I mean? So it was just I don't know, it was a lot, and I love today's conversation.
You gotta go where you gotta go digest.
Yes, it was a lot. Which I can record. I mean, it's recorded, but I want to go back over this one.
So look, go on YouTube and watch it. Okay.
Okay.
Again,
okay.
And I will tell you, I say this to you guys all the time. It's one of the reasons that I record them and publish them, because while we may know things, there are people who may get to hear this that don't have this information, and they need it. They need the context. And this goal is to help people.
Yes.
Right. And I'm on my lunch break, so my lunch break is over. I'm on my way back in, but this topic, I appreciate the whole conversation. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Chester, I know you came in kind of late. Did you catch the tail end of it?
Yes, I did. I caught the tail end of it, and I'm kind of like Rufus. I like what was being said. I like how you display, you talk about how we can help the people, and like I said, what is the beliefs, and show them that it's a better way to live, so we won't end up in a prison system.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lionel.
Did you hear me?
Say it. You can go ahead and repeat yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, you was breaking up.
Hello? Oh, what I said is, I like everything you said. I was, what Rufus said, and I think that, like you said, we need to change the values and beliefs of these youngsters so they won't fall into the poison going to prison and stuff. Make them understand it's a better way to live life, and give them hope. If a person have hope, he can live better. And keep them surrounded with positive things. So yeah, I mean, I like this class. Even though I came late, but it encouraged me to do better. And because you touch on a lot of topics. And I'm just happy to be a part of this. So yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now Mr. Bradley.
Yeah, for me, I treat everybody with kindness. I'm not the one to judge. And no matter, like, as far as people dressing, young people dressing, I got out. I went to the beach. And hey, people ain't wearing a damn thing, but everybody being respected, nobody being what's that touch or violating.
Okay, go ahead again.
Violating. Oh, I went to the beach. I see how these, nobody really wearing clothes. Everybody being respected. And just because they ain't wearing clothes, that don't mean they're not educated. These people go out of things and they learn and stuff like that. But yes, you're right about, incarceration took the parents away from the kids, and kids got lost and stuff like that. Then you had a bunch of people out there who was older, was all fucked up in the head, teaching the kids wrong too. And so like in Africa, a lot of these dances come from Africa, Jamaica, and all this type of stuff. A dance is celebration, and we celebrate and dance certain ways that other people can't. Older people like church and people, they always frown on people. And then when they talk about rap, the older people always talk about rap, but goddamn, they watch these Western movies. That's the only thing they do is blow people's brains out, kill Indians and scalp them and all that. But people don't talk about that. So reality is, we got to look at reality. We just can't look at one thing and blame one thing. You can't blame rap because rap was a form of communication back in the day from the East Coast to West Coast and stuff like that. That's how a lot of people had to communicate. But like I said, they don't blame Western movies when that's the first drive-by on horses and stuff. So,
Real talk.
we just can't look at Black people because in our time and days of slavery that we found ways, our ancestors found ways to make each other happy doing all this suffering. We danced, we did certain things to shake the pain, but then we started going to church and hoping God could save us and change things. And that shit didn't happen. I believe in God, but goddamn, look at all the shit that happened. I'm saying, don't judge people. We don't know what's going inside of them, but I say treat them with kindness. That because if she's selling sex or he's selling sex, still treat that person with kindness as a human being.
Absolutely.
That right there will help change that person in a better
Absolutely.
person.
Okay, Terrell, go ahead. Thank you. Terrell, any final thoughts from you?
This is a great topic. I want to go back and look at this, and I'm gonna share this with the young lady. I texted her and told her we was talking about the situation, and I want to hook her. And it's crazy because I actually mentioned you prior to being on the show because I was telling her what I had to do, and how we was in the PCI TI together, and all that stuff. And I was telling her how you was trained in crisis management. We were talking about the crisis and all of that. But so I enjoyed this show. Rebecca, Shuro, Tony, as always, putting it down, coming from them different angles that I can adjust, that I can see because I didn't see it because I was in prison myself. So covering up those blind spots that I probably didn't see or wouldn't notice because I'm a man and I was in prison and she's a woman and mother, she's on the street. So she's covering things that she knows. The other lady back there, what's her name? Diane, she always come with the fire. And Pike has something positive to say too today. I appreciate that out the brother.
Okay.
He finally made some sense out of the new generation out here. Coming out of the dinosaur shell, huh?
Pike, you said you came out your dinosaur shell today. So Pike, any final comments from you?
That dude's the best.
And look, Miss Cheryl, any final comments from you, sweetheart?
I have a lot to say about this kind of thing, so I hope we come back to it. Thank you very much.
And Miss Roberta, her name's Roberta. Miss Roberta.
Roberta.
Good night.
What do you call it?
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Miss Di.
I enjoyed the topic tonight. Thank you.
Miss Tony.
As always, I appreciate everybody's perspective and like the rounded conversation. I didn't mean to talk so much, but you hush.
You didn't talk as much as some.
This is very
Tony, tell her we enjoy the flow.
This is very much the heart of me in having 25 cousins and being the oldest and trying to help them navigate all of this. I see the collateral damage on so many different levels and generations, and hopefully that we can do something about it. So I'm willing to help in that fight.
And for me, that's the thing that I appreciate is, as you said, the rounded conversation. We started one place and it went into a lot of different topics. And so, but it shows you that we're thinkers. We're not just potted plants around here. We know some things. We have life experiences. And that is why we come together every week at Free to Heal, so that we can impart information that can help somebody else have a successful reentry transition. That's the purpose of us doing this. The purpose is to help somebody. It's not to come on here to be seen. The purpose is for somebody, hopefully, that can hear this information, that it will help them. For example, the young lady may be able to use this video and play this video to some of the young ladies that she's talking to as a tool for them to understand. Because sometimes I can tell you this, my son always laugh at me because he said, you always need to understand everything. That's your problem. You need to understand everything, right? Well, he said it as a negative, but I do. Once I can understand it, I can digest it and move forward from there. I can, right? And so a lot of times, if you don't know how you got to where you are and how that happened, you don't know how to move forward from there. You can't heal from that. And I'm saying that I have offered myself on more than one occasion to young women to try to mentor them through some of these things, and they don't follow through. And I don't have enough time to chase people down to try to help them improve themselves. But I will say this, I'm ready, I'm willing, and I'm able. And I thank all of you guys. And Terrell, I can't thank you enough for raising this conversation and allowing me to hijack your topic of your check-in, because I just hijacked it. But it's so crazy because literally I've had this conversation about like adjacent to this 2 or 3 times in the last week. And I'm like, oh my God, it's on so many people's minds. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that there's a young lady, and I want to offer my time and effort to help her do whatever she needs to do and get her any resources and all of those things. So I want to say to you guys, thank you for being here at Free to Heal. We come together every week so that we can try to heal from the ravages and the scars of mass incarceration. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, please, by all means, let us know what that is. And again, I just want to say thanks again, you guys, and good night. See you guys next week.
Good night.
Good night. Look, they're always listening.